So we'll spotlight Greg. Hi, Greg. Let's unmute you.
How's that?
That's good. Now we hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
G'day and good morning from Australia. It is Easter Sunday morning here at the moment. So as I do a bit of a tour around my PEZ room, it is Easter Sunday morning. So there are some Easter eggs hidden. So if you do spot an egg, make a note on the chat. And let's start. So first up, I got a lovely banner made by my wife and daughter just to signify my room. Now this is a new PEZ room that I've moved into. So as like everything, it's still a work in progress. So we have a bunch of ornaments and such through there. Now, a lot of these items are not very easily able to get in Australia. So it's thank you to a lot of friends in America and Europe for helping me out with my collection. So along the top, I've got some giant PEZ and some boxed PEZ. But then we'll start now into the displays. So we've got some Star Wars Stormtroopers and Shrek, some advertising and the Hello Kitties. Of course, there's a lot of Hello Kitties. And then we move into Star Wars and the click and plays. Into some more Disney ones. So we've got some Muppets and dinosaurs and Tom and Jerry, and the little Jerry down there unpainted is one of my favorites. I got that one through eBay from Switzerland. So Switzerland to Australia is a fairly long way. Okay. So now we're into sports, so basketball and baseball and the footballs and hockey at the end. Go across, we're just into sort of a random selection of items there. There's some whistles, some regular remakes, cookies, and hearts. And hopefully we can see through that. Got some convention PEZ and the Looney Tunes. Charlie Brown's. Some Bugs, Smurfs, bits and pieces. And sort of some leftover sports. So you've got your soccer balls and your NASCAR and some Zambonis. Get into our Garfields and bits and pieces and Pokemon. Lego is also another thing that I love. So put my Flintstones with a Flintstones Lego. And the Disney section. Yeah. And then we move across into Simpsons and superheroes. And Bubble Men at the end. So we're looking now at obviously some Easter and bits and pieces and Christmas. Going into Halloweens with some Misfits. And at the back there's a bunch of emoticons. And then a final little section of loose ones. So if we go into the cabinet now, we don't have many vintage PEZ. So that's my little vintage PEZ there. And some Beetle fantasy ones. Sections. Some trucks. Some bits and pieces. And the famous Down Under PEZ Hunter pin. Some fantasy ones at the back there. And bits and pieces. Lovely stamp set there from Austria, which is very good. And my 2 celloed vintage PEZ. Just some bits and pieces. Now you've probably seen the Australian cards are a shorter type of card, which is very good for us, and it's great artwork on them. So I have a nice rack of all the cards and my space gun. And the bottom of a skateboard deck that I got made up using some of my old PEZ. A little display on one of our stalls. Another egg. We're into bits and pieces now on this side of the room. So there's a lot of Christmas ornaments, which I didn't know existed until I went over to Tasmania there a few years ago. Things that you find out. Again, little bits and pieces that I have. Some sets, the tubes, which are obviously very hard to try and find somewhere to put them. And a bunch of cars. I do have a number of tins, but like any room, you never have enough room to really display everything that you want to. So you need to put those down. And some header cards. Toothbrushes, an eBay set on card, which is very good. I only got recently, along with this little Winnie the Pooh display. And the Funko Pop PEZ. Again, probably the more collectible Funko ones and bits and pieces. Again, just some miscellaneous stuff. The most random stuff turns up everywhere, as you know. If you saw that little yellow belt buckle, I found that on a site called Gumtree, which is like Craigslist over here in Australia. How it got to Australia, I have no idea. No one can tell me. So again, at the top, we'll go through. We have a couple of the Swarovski crystal ones, very sparkly, that turned up in Perth, Western Australia, for some reason. Some autographed PEZ, so we go through. And here's a special autographed one by Andrea from the PEZ Collection podcast, who come over and spent some time with us, which was great. Some of the tins. Now, these box sets turn up every now and again in Australia. They're Australian only ones, and they just seem to have Okay, we've got a few of these dispensers left over. Let's throw them into a box, and they print up their own special box. Except, of course, for the wrestling one. So again, we've got more small boxes, and we've got our boxed giants. And then we've got some other box sets. More tins and the presidential box sets. And then I've got a bunch of Japanese carded PEZ. I like the Japanese packaging. It's just a bit, it's different to what we get here, and it's different to what you guys, majority of you guys overseas get as well. So that's just a quick tour around, but I just wanted to show you a couple of Australian PEZ that have come out over the years. So Australia, we're in a unique situation. We get a lot of our PEZ through from Europe, but only if that character is licensed in Australia. So we don't get all of the European PEZ, and then we don't get the American PEZ as well, unless you're going to a specialty candy store, which charges exuberant prices. So I've just got just a small collection here of some of them that have come up. And obviously the first one that everyone talks about is the Barkie. Now, Barkies aren't actually sold in Australia, even though they're technically an Australian PEZ and the funds go to an Australian charity. Part of the agreement was they weren't to be sold in Australia. So that's a common question I get as an Australian collector is, can you get me a Barkie? And really, you've got more chance of getting them than what I do. Now, on the front there, we've had 4 Australian PEZ gatherings. So they are just the little dispensers to celebrate those. When I started collecting a couple of months after is when the Australian Emoticon set came out that Brian was talking about earlier today. So they came out on a black card. So that's a set of those ones, which are pretty special. Now, a couple of other little special ones that came out were, of course, the yellow-eyed Bratz figure, which was an Australian-only release. And one of the ones I did find, which was a bit strange, is we're calling him the two-tone Batman. Now, some people said at the time that I think that it's been a stem swap, but after researching into it, this version of Batman was released in Australia and Canada only. And of course, an Australian character is Blinky Bill, which is a children's novel from first released in 1933. So he's a long-term Australian. So there you go, nice and quick.
Greg, people want to know if you can still find those Australia packaging items, if you're still finding them down there.
Which items? Because all of our cards come on Australian packaging.
Right, the box set ones that they repackage.
Yeah,
those are very popular.
They come
here.
out
They're
every now and again. So these ones. Yeah, look, they're hit and miss. They are around. If you can find them, I can try and grab them. But usually they come out around Christmas time as like a stocking stuffer.
Oh, I see. And people are just curious how hard it is to find any PEZ at your stores around there. We know it's expensive for us to ship to you, but is PEZ kind of common or not so much, the new release stuff?
Yeah, look, it is, they're not widespread, but they're always selling, which is something that sort of I really don't understand. Is you would think if they're not selling, you wouldn't see many of them, but you don't find too many around, but they're always being sold, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
we know that there's Australian collectors out there, and if there's any that are on the conference today, please reach out to me, because we've got to try and build up our Australian collectors base so that we can expand and help each other around the country.
Do you have a fifth Australia gathering planned?
Not at the moment. With everything else, we're in lockdown as well. So it might probably be next year, I would say.
Okay. Well, we all look forward to that. Thank you so much for showing us around your room today. And
No worries.
so early.
Yeah, thanks. See you guys.